Good afternoon, late evening, kind of somewhere. No, I guess it's technically evening now at this particular point. Welcome back, everyone. I hope that you're having a fantastic one out there. Thank you so much for joining me here today and stopping on in. As today, it's been a little bit since we've listened to IQ, but it's time to go ahead and return with a little bit of a listen to them. We're going to check out this track, Common Ground. This is coming off of their third studio album, Nam Zamo, which was released in 1987. I just saw a flash of lightning out there. I'm always worried that, not necessarily of a singular song like that we're listening to right now, but I always think, man, if I'm ever doing an album reaction and just the power goes off right in the middle, that's all gone. And I'll just have to start over. Anyways, we're listening to this track here, Common Ground, because it was suggested. Sponsored by Marks. Mark, thank you so much for the request. Thank you so much for the recommendation. I appreciate that. And then this particular album had also been mentioned in the comments by Tidal Peak, Sidecar Dog, Gaia Eternal. He said that this is quite a good song as well. Frank B. and Darkness Blackened. Darkness Blackened. That's actually kind of a cool username. So anyways, let's go ahead and dive on into the track here. We'll discuss it a little bit after. Here we go. Fretless.
The enemies had never seen fighting like this before. Such a simple plan. How could any German man survive through that ordeal?
Nice note there. Really nice note. Sounds like Illin Pipes or something. The synth is overtaken. came through. Okay, there are a few things that I want to say about this track. So first of all, Mark, when he had submitted the request, had said that this was a track regarding the Battle of the Somme in 1916. I can't pretend to know the specific details about that without looking it up, and so I'm going to look that up right now. The Battle of Somme, of course, it's mentioned in the track itself, but we're gonna pull it up here really quick. Okay. It was also known as the Somme Offensive, was a battle of the First World War fought by the armies of the British Empire and the French Republic against the German Empire. More than 3 million men fought in the battle, of whom more than 1 million were either wounded or killed, making it one of the deadliest battles in human history. It illustrated the deadly potential of mechanized warfare that began in the mid-19th century. Okay. Keeping such a serious, tragic, and devastating event in mind with the track, can I say that I love how reserved and emotional the track was? And this is me, okay? It's IQ, progressive rock band. I have certain, ideas, of course, in my mind. We've listened to IQ, and obviously we've listened to a lot of progressive rock here on the channel. I like the restraint that was shown in here. I like how it didn't fall into some of the trappings of the genre in which we have to insert some crazy time signatures. We have to go off on a solo or a section that has nothing really to do with the music before, where we have to show off our technical prowess in this track. They don't. They remain incredibly respectful of the subject matter and play the music according to that part. So I actually want to mention two specific performers here and musicians. That's going to be, I'm just looking up their names, Mike Holmes on the guitar, and then Martin Orford on the keyboards. If I'm just to take the microcosm of those two together, they bring such a gentle, emotional, somber attitude and tone throughout this whole song that is incredible. In the beginning, especially guitar-wise, in the beginning, the first half, I like how, like I said, it's touches of something gentle, something serious, something to be respectful of. And then as we move into the halfway point, synth really begins to take over from Orford. And I love how it creates this almost watery ambience. Let's just say a tearful ambience. And I like how the synth is allowed to gently ebb and flow. And I mean gently, so minutely in its detail that it feels just like watching a very calm sea to the point that it's almost still. It's just a very nice bed, a barely emotion in this particular ocean. And one thing I also really like is that it almost felt like this track was not going to involve drums or anything like that. And I was completely fine with that because I feel like they were just executing this brilliantly. Eventually, the drums do come in, of course, with a big fill that could almost be expected. That's by Paul Cook. And what it leads into is a disturbing of those particular waters, but not a breaking away of them. Then, the drums, when they come in, they don't play, in my opinion, in the most typical, straightforward way that they could have been played. There's still a reservation even to the drums at that particular point. Not playing fast, not playing some groove. No, it's just almost like cannon blasts that are happening there. And amongst that, you have an incredibly anthemic, soaring solo from Holmes on the guitar, which ends things out. But let me just get to that moment when the drums come in. You see how, like, to me, there's a restraint in that pattern, and the pattern, as simple as it is, it's different from what it could have been. The ba da ba da ba, like, it has a certain weightiness to it when it could have just been played, ba da ba ba da ba da ba ba da ba. Like, there's still a holding back in the performance there. And like I said, the guitar solo, it's like an anthem. You almost want to take off your hat and hold it to your heart hearing that. I just think that they just executed this incredibly and took a really nice song structure as well, because it goes through many phases. You go through the intro, of course, the instrumental intro, and then the singing, really soft. We'll talk about that in a second. Very gentle. At some points during the lyrics, which kind of coincide, you get some marching band drums that kind of briefly make an appearance. There's some gunfire sound like one point. I love this little downturn in some of his vocals here. Starting off, like I said, somber and gentle. Fill it in a little bit more. And then eventually you get to that. Ooh, this is my favorite part of the track. This is my favorite part of the track, and I like how we sit in this ambience. And see what I mean? Like, it's like waters, but it's just barely moving. It's still almost like a calm before the storm, perhaps representing the calm before the storm of the battle, or perhaps it represents the aftermath and the ashes, the fallen soldiers, the uncounted death and turmoil and casualties. Like, there's so many things that it could represent. The ending could represent that, like the big bombastic ending, could represent the battle itself, something violent and patriotic in a way, or it could represent hope, or it could represent triumph. There's so many places you can kind of look at this from, and all are right and none are wrong. Let's look at these lyrics, though. And I think the title of this track is kind of interesting. I got to think about that a little bit. Here we are, alive and free, far away in time from our darkest day. That took our young and brave from the cradle to the grave 70 years ago on July 1, 1916 on the Somme. The enemies had never seen fighting like this before. Such a simple plan. How could any German man survive through that ordeal? Company A to Company B, morale is high here, sir, but I don't think it's safe to go. Company A from Company B. Mister, you have your orders and you must obey. So the first line rose and the first line fell. They rose, they followed orders. There was some hesitation there. They said morale is high, we're feeling good, but I don't think that it's the right move. And basically they got the response, you have your orders. And so they rose and they fell. And a poet who survived later wrote about a sunlit vision of hell. We'll look that up. And larks singing. Because after all, it's just another summer's day in France. For those soldiers, it was their last day. For someone else at the same exact time, that same exact minute, that same exact second in a completely different place, it was just another day. And the Tommies on the Somme sang, we are fighting to turn no man's land into a common ground. A common ground. So no man's land is obviously, in the trench warfare of World War One, you don't cross over the trenches into no man's land. That's more than likely how the first line rose. The first people rose out of the trenches to cross the land and try and make some gains and try and gain some ground. And they were, of course, shot down. We are fighting to turn no man's land into a common ground. What does that mean? What does the common ground mean here in this particular context? I think that they're basically saying we're trying to take no man's land, this place of death and desolation, and how can anyone survive basically in the crossfires there, and turn that into common ground, our land. Take it from a conflicted land into our land. That's at least how I kind of read that particular portion. Also, I forgot to mention, but singer P.L. Manel, I like how his voice really works within the context of the guitar playing. It's soothing. You can feel like there's a little bit of a soaring quality to it. Not used here, not really. But there's that moment that him alongside of the melody kind of takes a little bit of a downturn in the notes, which I think is really cool because it kind of foreshadows a darkness. It foreshadows something negative to come, of which, of course, as those orders come in, there is. This was a really well-written and well-performed track with, I think, a lot of respect for restraints, and it worked incredibly well. And I like how, once again, I'll just say it one more time, when the drums did come in, they didn't disrupt completely. They just added a lot to it at that particular point. Of course, those are my thoughts, but now you throw the ball back to me. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. I appreciate you all joining me here. Mark, thank you so much for the request. I appreciate that. And I hope that you all enjoy the rest of your day. Please swing on back by again tomorrow, and I will see you all then. Bye, guys.